Audible. Can we please have the video on, please?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You able to see me now?
Yes. So we'll get started. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us on a Saturday morning. So we are going to do this particular session on the apartment budgeting webinar, and ADDA has been doing these knowledge sharing webinars since last year. So we have been touching on a variety of topics that are in relation to apartment management, and it gives us great pleasure to bring you experts and people who have been in management committee for years, have enormous experience with management of apartment communities, to come and share their experiences with you. So I'm Karnika. I will be your host today for the webinar, and let me just introduce the panelists to you. We have Mr. Shishir Pari with us. Mr. Pari, can you please say hello to everyone?
Hello, everyone.
So we have Mr. Pari. Mr. Pari is the treasurer of Prestige Kensington Gardens, and he has a lot of experience handling budgeting for apartment and proper revenue utilization and what are the legal things to keep in mind while you're doing your budgeting. Then we have Chaitra from ADDA, who is going to talk about the importance of digitization in apartment budgeting now. And we have Sunil, who is going to open the webinar for today. So before I give the mic over to Sunil, just a few rules and regulations. So you have any questions to the panelists, there will be a Q&A section right at the bottom of your webinar screen. So you can put in your questions over there. Just in case you want to talk or you have any kind of inputs, then there's a chat section as well. You can utilize that. And just in case you want to talk to any of the panelists, there should be a raise hand option also for the participants. You can use that as well. So Sunil, over to you. Please do start the webinar.
Oh, thank you so much for handing over to me, Kanika. Hope I'm audible, right? Okay. Hello all. A very good morning to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for being here today, and thank you for giving us your precious time for the welfare of your community. It is so glad to see all of you here. We have here with us today Mr. Shishir Pati from Prestige Kensington Gardens Apartment. He's part of management committee and elected as treasurer. Mr. Shishir Pati look over all aspects of financial management, working closely with other members of the management committee to safeguard the community finances. Please welcome Mr. Shishir Pati. We have next in our panel, Ms. Chaitra. Ms. Chaitra has been working with us. Have been working with us for more than 3 years now. She has done hundreds of deployment in some of the very premium societies across India. Chaitra, thank you for taking out your time for this session. The session will now begin with a talk by Mr. Shishir Pati, focusing on the importance of the budgeting for apartment communities and housing society. Let's hear out from him. Over to you, Mr. Shishir Pati.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you, ADDA team. I will like this session to be more interactive, so I think it's better that I take a lot of questions, but just I have been working as a treasurer for last three and a half years, and getting involved in the whole budgeting process, monitoring the expenses, and how we can generate more revenue, and at the same time we can optimize our cost. So what I will do is I will take around five to 6 minutes to tell you about what are the processes we follow, and what are the probable best practices what we can bring in when budgeting is happening. The first and foremost, I think, before we start budgeting, it is best to have the completely audited financial statements certified by your auditor. And one of the other best practices is to just to make sure that we also do half-yearly audits, so half-yearly financial statements. So around September, when you complete half-year, then you also know what kind of financial trends are going, and you can make mid-course corrections. So do twice. Ask the auditor to produce 2 financial statements, one at half-yearly and another at yearly. So that is the first thing which is required, because you have to present the financial report, and also you have to appoint the auditor, during your general body meeting where you have the financial statement present. The second thing what you do is all the AMCs, because the most of the costs are going to AMCs. It is best is to, before the budget itself, negotiate all the AMCs so that you understand what kind of increase is happening and where your expenses are going, because that negotiation takes quite a lot of time. Third thing is most of the consumables, it's best to sign up the rate cards with the consumable suppliers. You can compare across suppliers and you sign up the consumables supplier so that you can get the best rate of the consumables. The fourth and important thing where ADDA is also playing a role is to analyze the trends. So how do you analyze what is the cost, what is the, what is the revenue, where it is coming from, if it has gone up or gone down, why it has gone down, ask those questions. Of course, it is more like Pareto analysis where, the majority expenses are going to 4 or 5 heads and all other smaller expenses are, we can probably not give priority, but for the majority expenses, do a trend analysis and ask a lot of questions and find out why some things have gone up and why some things has gone down. So that will give us an insight, like what are the actions we need to take so that the cost remains, low. After this OPEX part this is more of the, budgeting has OPEX and CAPEX. So it is important to know what is your OPEX budget and what is your CAPEX budget. So many times, many people, budget their CAPEX in OPEX and OPEX in CAPEX. So it's important to classify what is the OPEX expense and what is the CAPEX expense. As you all know, as per the apartment rules, CAPEX expenses, which is repairs and other things, can come from your Corpus Fund, whereas OPEX expenses has to come from your campaign. Why it is important, I will talk about it later. So once the OPEX part is kind of lined up and you kind of have the AMCs and you sort of know the financial statements, your expenses very well, then you start looking at, CAPEX. What are the CAPEX you want to do? So for that, it is best to solicit ideas from the apartment, people a month in advance, saying that what are the things which we can take up and what are the CAPEX we do. Obviously a lot of ideas will come, but the important thing is what to prioritize. The key principles what we follow to prioritize is, one is obviously, if some CAPEX we are doing, if it is revenue generating, then it is definitely a priority because you need more revenue. Second, the CAPEX is like for preventive, like you want to extend the life of the apartment. So all the preventive things has to be also be prioritized. Third things, anything with which is sustainability, like anything which makes our community sustainable over a long period of time. So those are the 3 important things which has to be prioritized. Other ideas will come, but those are the priorities which we have to take. For example, like somebody will come and give an idea about, say, waterproofing the roof. So that is the idea which is a preventive one, because before the leakage happens, you waterproof the do the waterproofing and spend money right now rather than waiting for leakages to happen. Similarly, like if you have STP, how do we do a assessment? Like it's best to do assessment where the STP is going and make preventive maintenance rather than the motors will burn down and you replace and you incur cost. So after these 2 OPEX and CAPEX are done, then you must think about contingency, because we need good amount of contingency, because new things will come up, like say suddenly government will say that come and do this renewal of your lift license. It will cost you a lot of money. Okay, so it is important that we just keep or some other things will come up, and in apartment spending, you cannot call the GB again and again, especially in COVID times. So you cannot go to the GB again and again to take if any expense is going beyond $1 lakh. So you have to go to GB again, which is very cumbersome and it takes a lot of time. So it is important that we keep certain contingency for budgeting. So this is certain ground rules which we follow, in budgeting. Then I will spend a couple of minutes. What are the key challenges? Everybody knows that our revenue stream is limited. Okay, so it is important that we keep the cost down. So I think it is important that we have negotiate the vendors. AMC negotiation happens, and wherever you have seen the performance has gone down, please look out. Even if you are presenting your budget around, say, after your, say, for example, you get your audited financial statements by April 30th, and you are presenting in May or early June, that point of time, 1 month ahead of time, you just start looking and making sure that you have alternatives for different vendors if the performance is not good. Wherever the performance is good, it is important to negotiate hard, keeping in mind the cost increases and etc. So this negotiation can take several weeks. So it is better to start early and negotiate. Okay, and also very clearly what you should do it in OPEX and what should be in CAPEX. Many societies, any repair, they are doing it in OPEX, whereas many societies, some small repairs, they will put it in, many society, all repairs are going to CAPEX, and many societies, small repairs are going to OPEX and other repairs are going to CAPEX. So it is important that you clearly discuss among your managing committee and take a call, what is CAPEX and what is OPEX, so that, your OPEX remains in tight control. Then third thing is, your deposits, interest rates are continuously falling. So it is important that treasurers know that where the interest rates are headed, So if the interest rates are going down, then it is important to, have multi-year deposits rather than single-year deposits where you are more interest. Of course, that if you have, say, CAPEX, corpus of, say, couple of crores, and you 50 lakhs, you want to keep it for CAPEX, then 1.5 crores, you can put it in the long-term deposits, say 5-year deposits or 4-year deposits, where you will get high interest rates. But if you think the interest rates are going up, it is best to put it in short-term or single-year deposits, so that as next year, when you renew, you will probably get better rates. And also, second thing is, you have to also look at the safety. Now, last year itself, we have seen 5 or 6 banks, going bust, So there might be small banks which are giving you large amount of higher interest, but we have to see really, we have to strike a fine balance between the safety. So for example, RBI has come and told that SBI, ICICI Bank, and SDFC are 3 large banks which are very difficult to fail. RBI will not allow them to fail. So these are the 3 or 4 large banks which RBI is guaranteeing that they will not fail. So that means the risk factor is very, very low. So when we are putting FD with them, okay, when we are putting the FD, also we can negotiate certain amount of putting the ATM or certain things, because ATM fees are quite high. So those are the things we can negotiate and strike a balance between the risk and return. Then the most important part is, the GST limit, and most of the larger apartments where the GST limit is 7,500 rupees, per month. So if you are started paying more than 7,500 rupees, you start attracting 18% GST. So how do we make sure that we make CAPEX, which is generating revenue, so that our OPEX goes down and we stay below 7,500 limits. So that is one of the big challenges. Okay. The other thing, what are the various cost optimization you can do? One I have seen is that if you look at analyze the cost, the major cost is if you have a property management vendor who is taking care of everything, like your garden and maintenance and everything, obviously that is the largest cost. So your negotiation has to be very, very tough with them. Secondly, the second cost, more important cost, comes from electricity, and third is water, and fourth is your lifts. If you have 16 or 17 lifts, you pay high amount of AMC for them. Other AMCs are lower. Of course, waste disposal is another one. So there, what you can do is, if the vendor is good and they are kind of good vendors, number one, or lift vendors are basically OEMs, there you can sign for multi-year contract, like, and see if you can get discounts, so that so that you can minimize the cost, because you are not going to change those vendors. It is better to lock them in for multi years and get discounts for them. Similarly, insurance is another area. Insurance also, we have to see how we can discuss, and if we can have different kind of insurance, multi-year insurance. Right now, of course, very limited flexibility is there. Third, of course, is the electricity, which is the major consumer. So one option now which is available is investing in solar power based on the number of meters you have. It takes 3 or 4 months to install a solar power and get a PPA with the BESCOM. So where the electricity is costs are going up, this time it has gone up by twice. So till the gross metering is available, I am at least know that till March end of this year, gross metering is available. Hopefully it will be extended. So what happens is you invest in CAPEX, and that that CAPEX basically generates or reduces your electricity bill, which converts it to OPEX. So it is kind of a revenue generating. Or you are able to create certain facilities which you are able to rent it out, invest in certain facilities which you can rent it out, or you can have revenue generating. Those investing in these facilities are also important, because the interest rates has fallen to very, very low right now. And so just keeping in the money in the bank doesn't really give you revenue. Okay. Then basically all other areas where you can reduce electricity is to completely switch over to motion sensing lights, which is very cheap right now. The technology is very much available, and it's in phases. You can make a statement and you can do motion sensing lights, and if you have more stairways, those lights can be automated. Timing wise, it can be automated, because if your guard or somebody is putting it up, they will probably miss it, and many times you will consume more electricity. So there are sensors available which will put it off and put it on at particular time, so that the manual intervention is avoided. Okay. So so these are the kind of things which you can do to optimize the cost. Okay. So so eventually how when you present, you might have certain idea, but it is important to get the participation of the community. At the same time, analyze the data which is available in the ADDA. You do the financial analysis very well and see the trends, as well as continuously think of generating more revenue and optimizing costs. So so with that, those kind of thought process, what we have been able to do is last 3 years, we have been able to keep our AMC at constant, which is a great benefit for all our community members. We have been able to keep it constant, and hopefully by next year we can keep it constant. So those are the few things I wanted to tell you, and I will pass over to Sunil.
I'll just take over. Thank you, Mr. Pari. That was indeed a very insightful talk that you gave there on budgeting. We also have questions that are starting to come in. So we will be taking these questions right after all the panelists have finished speaking. We have a dedicated Q&A round time also. So Chaitra, I would request you to take over now.
Yeah. Am I audible, Karnika?
Yes, you are.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Chaitra. I'm from ADDA team. So I'm here to speak about how ADDA can help associations in budgeting. So I have prepared a small PPT. So let me just share my screen. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Chaitra, it's perfectly visible.
So budgeting for apartment owners association. So before getting into it deeply, what is budget? Why is budget really required for any associations or organizations? A budget is a financial plan for a defined period, say often financial year. So budgeting is a process of creating a plan to spend your money. The spending plan itself is called a budget. So budgeting is nothing but it is balancing your expenses with your income. So with this, I'm just moving to the next slide. So I've listed here some of the benefits of budgeting. So first benefit is that it provides you 100% control over your money. So let's think about this for a moment. Is your organization or association controlling your money, or is it controlling you? So yes, it is important to set the budget in every organization or association to have control over your expenses with your income. So the second benefit is it lets you track your financial goals. Another advantage of having set up the budget is that it helps you to avoid spending on unnecessary expenses. And third thing is that it will help you organize your spending. So when starting to budget, start by breaking down or listing down all your expenses. So this makes it easy to quickly view where you're spending more on which expense or services. So how you will know that how much you're spending on what service or what expense. So ADDA will also help you in providing the comparison report here. It also helps to identify problems before they occur, such as the need to raise finance or cash flow difficulties. So if you do not have a proper budget and if you keep booking the expenses, there might be a time where you need to raise funds because you're running out of the money. So it is important to set up the budget so that whenever you're booking expense, you will get those details. Oh, what is the budgeted amount and where you stand in that. By this, it also ensures that association don't spend money that they don't have. So budgeting is very important. So now let's see how ADDA can help in this. So how ADDA can help you in budgeting. So ADDA can help associations in budgeting in this means. So we have an expense tracker wherein you can set up the budget for one financial year. So here we have a setup. You can set it up as seen in the screenshot, or you can also upload it in Excel in one shot. So once the budget is set up for an association for a financial period, it helps you in the following ways. When you create a purchase request, when your team is creating a purchase request, and the moment they choose the expense head, it gives you the details of the budget. What is the budgeted amount and what are the expenses occurred till date and what is the variance amount. By this, your team will be aware that where they stand, what is the budgeted amount and till what extent they have reached. So ADDA will also provide these details while booking the expense invoice. So the moment you create the invoice and choose the expense head, it gives you the details like, so your team will be aware of what was the budgeted amount and what is the expenses occurred till date and what is the variance amount. So by this, they can have a control on their expenses. ADDA will also provide you the reports on budget reports like budgeted rate, budget logs. So it also gives you a breakup of community expenses. So here you can see out of 100% which expense group is having how much share of it. So where you're spending more, you can see it and you can try to reduce it. You can also have a look at this pie chart, which gives you the breakup. It also helps you in analyzing the budget versus actuals, both in figures as well as the graphical picture. So here I've shared some of the screenshots. Now I just want to give a small demo on the actual product on how ADDA is helpful in budgeting. So I'm just, so we have a mod. I hope you're able to see, right? The product.
Yes, Mitra, it's visible. Don't worry.
Thank you. So we have a expense tracker module in ADDA admin. So here you can see something called budget. So as I shown in the screenshot, you can set up the budget here by clicking on setup, or you can upload the Excel in one shot. So once you're done with this setup of budget for a financial year, when you create a purchase workflow, and the moment you choose the expense head, you get these details like what was the budgeted amount, till date it is this much is the expenses and what is the variance amount. So by this, your team will be aware that where they stand and till what extent they have reached for this expense head. Same way, while booking the vendor expense also, you get to see these details. The moment you choose the expense head, you get to see what was the budgeted amount and what is the expenses till date and what is the variance. And ADDA also provides you the expense comparison report wherein you can compare month on month. So you can fetch according to your requirement. and you get to see what are the expense heads and how the graph is going. Is your expenses going upwards or is it getting reduced? So as I mentioned, ADDA also provides you the reports of budget, like budget logs, budget report, budgeted rate. So uh, in terms of budgeting, ADDA will cover most of all the features of by setting up of your financial yearly budget to analyze the actuals and budgets, and also it provides you beautiful reports with graphical and pie chart, which makes it more presentable. So that's pretty much what I wanted to cover up today. Thank you all for attending, and I would now call up Karnika to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Chatra. So we are going to get into the Q&A round. We do have some questions coming in, and the panelists, please feel free to take the questions, whichever you think you have the expertise on. Okay. So the first question that we have is from Mr. Shurodev Bandhopadhyay. His question is, my query is specific to what are the important conditions one should keep in mind when they are taking the financial handover from the builder? So, Mr. Pari, I think you will be the fitting person to answer this question.
Yeah. So when you are taking taking up from the vendor, one is obviously you have to see the DOD, deed of declaration is in proper order, and the vendor and your vendor is signing the DOD. The second thing is the Corpus Fund. So you have to see if the Corpus Fund which was collected is completely passed on to you. There are certain other things which are collected, so there should be very clarity, because they might sometimes they collect certain things like taxes and they put it in a escrow account. So that is the other thing which we have to see, where the funds are and what are the conditions when it will be passed on to the association. And also you have to see the clubhouse and everything is with vendor. No other facilities like are with the sometimes they will be holding certain parking slots and etc. with the apartment builder. So you have to negotiate and agree which one is coming to association and which one is staying with the builder. So those are the mainly the Corpus Fund and the reserves is the most important thing. Then secondly, you also need to see when you are handing over, what are the things which are not properly maintained, and they have to bring it. They have to bring into proper condition. Suppose STP you see, and if it's not properly functioning or certain things are not in working condition, then you have to make sure that they put it in working condition before it is handed over to the association. The other thing is, the most important thing is, they might not have implemented any ERP. They might be just keeping the bookkeeping just like that. So you have to look at what is automated and what is not automated, because as most of the people who are part of the association, they will have another day job also. So they cannot really spend a lot of time, streamlining those things. So it is important that like ERPs are available, which takes care of all the expenses. So you have to see if ERPs are not there, then how the record is maintained, and do an assessment from the ERP vendor, how it can be automated or where gaps are there. And if we need some more things from the builder so that we can automate the accounting process, the whole accounting and expense process. The other important thing is as the labor is the most important cost, and the AMCs are the other important parameters. So you have to really review all the AMCs, and you also have to see all the attendance and all other part of the labors are all streamlined. So it is more around the process streamlining corpus. So it is certainly finances, money, and obviously the title deeds and etc. So these are the 3 or 4 categories. And if you don't have enough time, it is important to see if you can really pay some money, small money, and appoint an internal kind of auditor who audits all of these things and gives you a report. Because many times is we are not professionals and we are not really, doing, we cannot probably take care of everything. It's important that a independent person audits and, give you inputs on what are the things which are as per apartment bylaw are pending with the, the builder. And builder has to, because it's an independent party, so builder and you can come to a negotiation table, see the audit report and ask them to comply with the audit report. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Pari. The next question that we have is from Mistral Apartments. I think Sunil, you can answer this one. Mistral's question is, what are some of the safe banks that are guaranteed by RBI to use for their association account?
I think Mr. Pari has answered to this question when he was presenting his thoughts. So the top three banks which is listed, the safest banks are HDFC, the SBI, and ICICI Bank. These are the top three safest bank which is listed by the RBI.
Sunil, just a follow-up to that question, that just in case if an association does not want to, invest in one of these three banks that you listed, what are the things that they should keep in mind when choosing their banks for their association accounts?
The success rate, there are a lot of criteria comes into the picture. The success rates, the customer rates, how safe it is. They have to go through the, they have to research on it, basically, how safe is it. Because you're going to invest a crores worth of your amount to FDs and then a lot of amounts gets into the banks, right? There are a lot of parameters comes into the picture. As I told you, the success criteria, and then the interest part, and whether this is really a sustained bank, this is a long-term bank which is approved by RBI. You have to come into a lot of, you have to look into a lot of these categories, Kanika.
Okay. The next question that we have is from Ms. Shubhadra Sarkar. Her question is, can income from regular maintenance be used as capital assets investment? I think Sunil or Mr. Pari, either one of you can take this particular question.
Yeah, I think again, so there are two things. One is CAPEX and then one is APEX, as Mr. Pari had explained. The capital expenditure, I would suggest that we should park a separate corpus, a sinking fund amount to take care of it, because the capital investment will always be a huge amount. The OPEX is used for the day-to-day expenses. If you're ending up spending the OPEX, the day-to-day, the maintenance income that you collect to take care of your maintenance expenses, then you get into trouble of meeting the regular expenses if you're using your maintenance income to meet the capital expenses. So it is always better to have a corpus separately to meet these kind of capital expenses, I would say. Mr. Shishir can add if I missed anything.
Yeah, so if you really have a surplus in OPEX, I believe that it's better to move it to corpus at the end of the year, so your reserves will move to corpus becomes more.
Yeah.
And preferably, large capital expenses, you can continue to spend from your corpus, because also we have to know, for example, for our apartment, we sort of did some financial analysis. We found that we need at least minimum 2 crores corpus to take care of any expenses. And right now, if we have 3 crores corpus, then we have still a flexibility to spend 1 crore from that. But at the same time, we are continuously, like for last year, we generated 35 lakhs of surplus out of our OPEX. So what we did is we put it into the reserves, and our corpus becomes higher, which we informed everybody. And so the other thing is, when you are doing the OPEX and you have a surplus, and next year if your expenses has gone up, so you can take a call like, what of the surplus can you really take it forward, to your next year's budget, so that you don't have to increase your OPEX, or you want to put it back in your corpus. So that is a very important decision which the treasurers and the managing committee has to take, keeping in mind what kind of expenses are coming. Are you really going to hit the GST limit, which will impact everybody? So during the budget, you really assess how much is the surplus you have, and accordingly how much you want to take to reserves and how much you want to take it forward. Okay. The other thing is your interest income. That is kind of you paying taxes on it. So so more funds you put it on corpus, you get interest. You keep on paying taxes on that interest. So if you are really accumulating a lot of corpus, then you are really those interest income is not coming as free. If you are getting 5.5% interest, you keep on paying 30% tax. Your real rate of return is much lower. Okay. So it has to be a fine balance, which we have to do, keeping in mind, how the apartment owners are benefited the most.
Mr. Varghese has two questions. Question number one is, what are some alternative revenue generation systems that housing societies can look into? Can one of you, which of the panelists would like to answer that question? Any one of you can take it.
Okay. Okay. What I would think of is the other source of income is you can the facility bookings, the notice managers. You can start using the notice managers, facility bookings, and events, and allowing the space for rental, and also investing your amount for interest income, so that you can earn interest income, and also enabling the late payment interest for the defaulters. So these are some of the other source of income other than the regular income I could think of, which can help you add up your revenue.
As a side note to what Sunil said, so ADDA does have certain programs in place that helps associations or generate extra revenue as well, that is not related to the maintenance fees. So in case any of you want any details, I'm sure all of you have some of our contact numbers or contact emails with it. You can mail us or call us, and then we can guide you further with those revenue strategies as well. So the other question for Mr. Varghese is, in a cooperative housing society, exempt to TDS deduction on deposit income with cooperative banks.
Shishir, you would like to take it?
We are not using any cooperative banks so far.
Yeah. So cooperative housing society, the question is it exempted the TDS on the investment, right?
On deposit income.
On deposits. Yes, obviously. For cooperative bank, if you are depositing your investment, the cooperative bank, yes, the income tax is not, the TDS is not deducted by the on the investments. TDS is not deducted by the investment. Even if it is getting deducted at the time of income tax payable, you can actually deduct that and make the payment.
Okay. There's another question from Ms. Subhadra Sarkar, and that question is, what are the things to keep in mind about FD investment with post office? So I think she would like to know about if there is any tax implications or not, or is it tax free, and how to go about the maturity and things like
that. So I think best is to first discuss with the post office on the maturity part of it. If you are getting, as I have said, certain things like 2 crores of corpus, we can always keep, we don't want to spend. So if it is, if you are getting a higher interest rate for higher maturity deposits, please go for it for that amount, core amount, which we want to keep, because that way we can earn interest. Obviously, as far as my knowledge, all the interest is what is earning for apartment society, so that has to be taxable. So it might be post office or bank, it will be taxable, basically.
Okay, and is it a safe and secure option to do this investment in post offices?
Post office is fairly safe and secure because now it is guaranteed by the government. The problem earlier was the digitization of the post office. Today, banks offered much more. Like today, for example, many banks are providing you login so that you can make payments by checker and maker facility, and all the internet banking, so that you can see your FDs and you can see your transaction statement on your own. You don't need to ask for the transaction statements. You just log into HDFC Bank's website or ICICI Bank website, and you can do a lot of transaction paperless. At the same time, you can also see all your transactions, verify all your transactions. You get SMS I have not really used post office that much to see if their technology, but as far as I know, I work in TCS, and we just implemented the ERP system for them. So obviously, technologically, they are coming up. So it is important that we assess how technologically savvy they are, so that it is easier for us to operate. But I think safety purpose, I think it is guaranteed by Government of India, like similar to banks. So I don't think there is a safety concern, much more safety concern in post office, because it is fairly guaranteed by Government of India.
I can see Mr. Pradeep Vasudevan has his hand raised. So I think I will allow Mr. Pradeep to talk. Mr. Pradeep, you can talk.
I just wanted to check on this bylaws. Our bylaws ask us about Corpus Fund and Sinking Fund. That is 10% of our maintenance collection is to be placed in Sinking Fund and also the Corpus Fund. What is the purpose of, can we use the Sinking Fund for replacing high cost capital investments like replacing generators or STP? What is the purpose of Corpus Fund? When do we use it?
So what we don't have a sinking fund, Mr. Basudevan. Everything is in corpus today. But so basically, the corpus can be utilized, for any repairs as per the bylaws, any repairs and maintenance. Okay, not for the day-to-day expenses. So, so for example, it is up to the committee to classify which repair you want to put it in corpus. For example, I have seen examples of even a smaller repair is being, spent from corpus, and whereas for us, we have taken like painting, STP, refurbishing, waterproofing, all those big investments like 15, and all the civil works, redoing the civil work, so that and investment in solar power, all these things we have taken from corpus. Whereas many other apartments, even replacing the hump and repairing anything, they are taking it from corpus because they have a good amount of corpus. So it is important that you assess. I think your sinking fund and corpus fund, Sunil probably can clarify, but it is same. So you should be able to use it, as long as your apartment bylaws allow it. Okay. If there is no provision, and you really want to be legally secure, then there is proper methodology defined to amend the bylaws, by taking the majority of, it is little difficult process because, you will not get so much of people to come in and really vote, or we have to see electronic voting or something. But we have hardly tried to amend the bylaws. But I think both are same, and I think you can use it.
Okay. So prior to the webinar, we had a couple of questions from Sumadhura Silver Ripples also. So I think I'm going to get on those questions. The first question is, what can ideally be the major components of budgeting, like payable or AMC or repair and maintenance, etc.?
So the major component obviously is your property management expense, which is almost 70 to 80%, because that is where, for example, in Prestige, we are using PPMS, Prestige Property Management Services. Many vendors with many things you will use a separate vendor for gardening, separate vendor for repairs, and etc. So PPMS, because they are familiar with all the electrical wiring, they are familiar with everything. And they also provide, like they have their own civil HODs and electrical HODs. So which, if we take up anything, so they guarantee us that they will review. Like, for example, we took our spending project last 2 years back, and their civil department continuously reviewed every milestone. They pointed out to Berger what kind of issues are happening, and etc. So it is a value-added service which we are getting. So the majority is coming to the labor, basically what they are doing to maintain the property. The second largest expenses is the electricity expense. And if you have generator fuel plus electricity expense is second largest expense. Water is mandatory. You cannot do anything about it. You have to, if you are having a Kaveri connection, you keep on paying. They provide you water or not. So you keep on paying. So that is the statutory you have to pay. And third, fourth, I think is your lift maintenance, which is high. And fifth is obviously your STP maintenance. So these are I think the 5 major heads of your expenses.
Okay. The next question that we have is, what is the ideal situation to utilize any surplus fund available with the society accounts from the previous year? And what provisions can be made to use it in the current budget?
So if you have a surplus, I also alluded to it in my last answer. If you have a surplus, see, ideally, India, you are not in a zero inflation economy. Your inflation is going up, so things will go up. So if it is surplus, and the apartment owners will be happy if the camp fee is not going up. So if you can use part of this, if you have enough corpus, you don't need to build corpus, then use those surplus to keep the camp fee constant. Okay, so that people will be happy, even though there is a little bit of inflation. And then you can use the surplus money to keep the camp fee constant. And for example, during this COVID times, we also kind of use the surplus money to use our OPEX this year, so that we can waive up charges for using tennis court lights and certain other clubhouse. We reduce the clubhouse usage, like party hall usage charges, from 3,000 to 1,000, because this COVID times people are in trouble. So there are certain ways to utilize so that people are benefited. But at the same time, I think it is not a good practice to bring the camp fee down. Once the camp fee is down, very difficult to take the camp fee off. The other thing is to park it in corpus, or to look for revenue generating opportunities which you can create a facility. For example, we invested in a badminton court and we do a tournament and we rent it out. That time we generate certain money, and we invested 10 lakhs of rupees to create a proper Olympic sized badminton court. Now the residents are paying all throughout the year, but during a tournament we can use and generate money. Similarly, or you can put up a solar power, so that you keep on saving almost quite a huge amount of money every month. So it is up to management committee to put it through the budget. And but the best guidance is not to reduce the camp fee, continue, because the inflation is always going to hit you. Try to keep the camp fee constant by using the surplus, and of course put in investments which is revenue generating, because the interest rates are going down right now, and it doesn't make much sense to park the money in the bank.
Mr. Shurodip Bandyopadhyay has his hand raised, so I think I'll allow him to talk. Mr. Bandyopadhyay, you can talk now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So actually, I had a query on the collections, right? I think via ADDA, like we have been able to achieve, much more collections that was happening earlier. But I think as a practice, I would just like to know from the experts here, in case of, a precarious situations like we had last year, right? So how good is the practice in case, we allow some kind of discount to our residents, right? On the camp, right? So when we come up with a budget, right, and we as an as an RW, we decide that we are going to allow some discount or absorb some of the cost, right, for the residents, for the maintenance, and then provide them a lower camp rate for that quarter. So as a practice, how good or how prudent is it?
So basically, if you look at it, the clear driver for us is the GST limit. Okay, so as long as you are keeping like 3.78 rupees per square feet, you are under 7,500. Okay, so if you think that you have bandwidth in the times of COVID, it is definitely important to give some relief to the customers. Okay, so that they will be happy. But at the same time, if you bring down the camp fee, that's why what we did is we reduced the facility charges, other expenses. We didn't bring down the camp fee, but it is up to management committee to decide to bring down the camp fee as a one-time exercise. But again, once you're for example, this year, the vendors, we were able to negotiate 1 or 2% raise because of the COVID. But next year, they will start asking 5% raise. So next year, if you anticipate, then again, you will hit the 7,500 limit, and it will be counterproductive. So it is better to take a long-term view At the same time, strike a balance of giving certain benefits to the consumers. The second thing is there might be like, we charge penalty because of the late payment. So what we did is during the COVID years for a couple of quarters, we waived up the penalty. We didn't charge the penalty for late payments, and we allowed 1 additional month for them to pay the money, or 2 additional months to pay the money instead of in 1 month. So there are multiple ways available which management committee can decide. There is a flexibility in management committee's hands. But at the same time, it is not good to become very populist and reduce, because later on you will leave something to your next committee who will face real trouble, and raising the fee and hitting the GST limit. Those are the very unpopular decisions which they will put on you because you have taken some short-term decisions.
I think the next question, Sunil can take it. Sunil, the next question is, can there be a penalty obligation to members not paying the sinking or corpus fund within the due date?
Come again.
Can there be a penalty obligation to members not paying the sinking or corpus fund within the due date?
No, there is no. I mean, within that, if they are paying any amount within the due date, then there's no penalty concept at all. First of all, okay. If in case if they are delaying it, then obviously they will come under the late payment penalty purview. They will have to pay for it. If they are paying, they're clearing the amount within the due date, then it is obvious that they don't have to think about the penalty clause.
Okay, so we'll take the last question for today. And I think Mr. Pari will be the best person to take this question. So what is an SOP or utilization procedure for any sinking or corpus fund collected by the RWA from its members?
So the corpus fund, if I look at the bylaw, mostly it is used for maintenance, repair, and upkeep of the property. So please use that for maintenance, repair, and upkeep of the property. Don't use it for the OPEX. So that is the guideline. And my guidance is to give priority, as I have said, to the preventive maintenance. Because what happens is, if you don't do the preventive maintenance, then in future you keep on incurring much more cost. So it is important that we drive down the idea of really focusing on, for example, somewhere leakages are started happening. So you have to really survey and close all the leakages before things become worst. So so similarly, so it's better to use all the repairs, and please use it judiciously. And obviously, we have to make sure that we get the best rate and best quality of the vendor, which vendor selection process has to be very, very, very transparent and very, very smooth. Okay.
So we have come to the end of the Q&A round, and with that we come to the webinar today as well. The panelists, Mr. Pari, Sunil, and Chaitra, thank you so much for taking out your time today. And it was really an insightful session considering the amount of questions that came in, and each one of the participants as well. Thank you for being such an interactive audience, and we hope to see you in more of our webinars. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.